Hello, everyone. My name is Narita Salinas, and I am the Director of the POLS Master's and Joint MA-MBA degrees here at the School of Education at Stanford. On behalf of everyone at the School of Education, I'd like to welcome you, and I'd like to thank you for your interest in these two programs, which we sometimes refer to as our leadership degree programs. I'd like to start today by applauding all of you for considering making this type of investment in your futures. It signals to us, and it should signal to you, how serious you take your future career and the type of impact that you want to create in the field of education. Not everyone approaches their careers with this much seriousness, and we definitely applaud it, and I wanted to take a moment to do that. So as we talk about the POLS and Joint MA-MBA programs, it's good to step back and note that where our faculty placed these programs when they were designing them was very much at the cross-section of policy, organizational leadership, and teaching and learning. Field policy is particularly important because of the importance of understanding the historical policy decisions that have brought about the current educational landscape to what it is today. We also feel under this policy realm that it's important to equip yourself to be a savvy consumer of educational research and to be able to discern between well-done studies and subpar research. There's definitely a spectrum of quality out there in the world, and we really like our students to leave here equipped to distinguish between the high quality and low quality research coming out. Organizational leadership is particularly important because some of you are going to go out into the world and find that you really work best in small entrepreneurial organizations, and some of you might work much better with larger, more established organizations. But in the field of education, as in most fields, you're going to find that partnership is very important, and that there are a number of frameworks out there in the world of organizational behavior that will help you better navigate both the small organizations as well as the medium and large organizations. And we want to equip you with these theories and this knowledge and these frameworks in organizational behavior before you get out there. We don't think that your navigation will then be, just simple and straightforward within these organizations. But I like to always say, rather than knocking your head against the wall 10 times in trying to move forward a particular initiative, you may only have to knock your head against the wall 2 or 3 times. So that's where the organizational behavior piece comes in. As far as the organizational leadership piece, which we couple together here, there are going to be many opportunities for you to exercise leadership in the program, and both in a formal way as well as an informal way, sometimes in the classroom, sometimes outside of the classroom, through many of the initiatives that we provide you through the specific programs, be they the POLS program, the Joint MA-MBA program, or also the opportunities that you'll have through the Vice Provost's Office for Graduate Education, which are quite abundant in this area. In terms of teaching and learning, we feel that this is a very important area because we want all of you to be able to have some tools in your toolkit that will allow you to observe when good teaching is taking place and when real learning is actually happening, versus some kind of charismatic speaker in front of a class that might be able to fool the average person who doesn't understand the theories of cognition and of teaching that we feel are incredibly important. And this is regardless of whether or not you're going to go into a classroom after POLS or the Joint MA-MBA. Most of our students do not return to a classroom, but know that they want to still impact the field of education, and therefore this is a very important tenet of the program. So across these 3 areas, we feel that we're equipping you with the necessary knowledge and the necessary context so that you can really lead complex educational organizations. We do this through the POLS program, which is a 9-month, 3-quarter program. It's a very young program. It's been around about, I think we're admitting our 8th cohort, no, our 9th cohort this coming admission season. And also the joint MA-MBA program, which is a much older program, but it's been around since 1967, and this program takes place across usually 6 to 7 quarters and 2 academic years. The purpose of both of these programs is really to create change agents for the field of education across sectors. We definitely recognize that the nonprofit, public, and private sectors operate differently, and each has its own culture, its own language, its own set of expectations. But we feel that our graduates, in order to be effective agents of change in the field of education, need to be able to navigate the 3 sectors and will move, as we found with our alumni, from one to the other throughout their careers. In fact, our graduates often say that they feel their master's degree is often similar to a passport and allows them to more effectively navigate their cross-sector interactions when they compare their own quality of interactions with that of peers who haven't had the exposure to this type of interdisciplinary thinking across different sectors. A couple things that I want to say before I dive specifically into the POLS and joint MA-MBA program. Stanford itself, across the entire university, places a very high value on education. And if you're not familiar with this, with the Stanford K-12 initiative, I highly encourage you to go to our website at k12initiative.stanford.edu. You're going to learn about some of the very interesting work that has been happening across the university, leveraging faculty in a variety of different schools at the university, and just a lot of the cross-collaborative efforts that have taken place and have led to the creation of SEPA, CSET, and our Principal Leaderships program. You're also going to find there's a very collaborative culture across the university. The D School, which is our School of Design Thinking, that you can learn more about at dschool.stanford.edu, and the history of the joint programs will definitely expose you to just how porous the walls are at Stanford among our different schools. Yes, the School of Ed has its own faculty and students, the law school, the business school, the School of Medicine, Arts and Sciences, but you will find that these walls are quite porous, and that is definitely one of the strengths of Stanford University. You are not admitted to a program or a school here. You very much are admitted to the entire university. The entire university is on the same quarter system, including our law school, one of the few, if not the only law school in the country to be on the quarter system. And our time schedule is, for the most part, adopted by most of the university. The other thing I also like to note to people is that when you graduate from Stanford, each of our schools doesn't have its own alumni database that only allows you to access alumni from that school. You then become part of stanfordalumni.org, and there is just a Stanford family that you are a member of and that thinks of itself as one entity. The Stanford School of Education, yes, we have a very impressive faculty, as most top-tier schools of education, but the really unique part of our faculty is how accessible they make themselves to students. Time and time again, students comment on how impressed they are by the level of accessibility they have to faculty members. You're going to find that for the most part, classes tend to be small. We have some classes that tend to be in the 40s, but those will be among the larger spectrum of your course sizes. You'll also find that in our classes, the classes are offered to both master's and doctoral students for the most part, and this creates a very healthy tension between theory and practice in the classrooms. There are those students who really want to grapple with the theory and stay at that level of the conversation. And then there are other students, and the polls and joint MA/MBA students tend to be among this latter group, who really push the conversation to convert this research and these theories and policies into practice and into execution, and what does that look like on the ground, and how can we ensure that what we actually want to achieve is happening. The other really neat thing about the courses here is that there are going to be, of course, School of Education students, but we also, because of our porous walls across the different schools and because of our joint programs, you're going to be in courses with the law students and students from the business school and other graduate programs across the university. There are also the opportunities to participate in independent studies here at the School of Education, and therefore when there is something that you really want to learn about and you can't quite find a course that addresses that particular area, or perhaps you want to delve deeper into a topic that was covered by a course but only at more of a surface level, you can always set up an independent study through one of these 3 routes with a faculty member and delve deeper into that particular area. So the POLS program, as I mentioned before, is about 8 years old, and it is a 3-quarter program, 1 academic year. This past year, just to give you a flavor for what a cohort looks like, we had 35 individuals gathered from 26 colleges across the U.S. and outside of the U.S. A few of those were international students. 69% female, 24% were first-generation college students. One of the most unique things about polls is that there's a very wide spectrum in the years of work experience across the cohort. You'll always have, a minority of students, 2 or 3 in a given year, who are coming directly out of college with significant life and work experiences. And then you'll have 2 or 3 students on the other end of the bell curve who've had decades of work experience in one or a couple of different careers. And then there's everyone else in the middle with probably an average of about 6 to 7 years of work experience. And that's a very unique aspect in master's programs. And one of the things that definitely distinguishes our POLS students from our joint MA/MBA students. There's also a wide spectrum of the types of work experience, as you can see below. When you are admitted to the POLS program, you're admitted to the program, and you don't have to declare a concentration, but by week 4 or 5, you will be asked to declare a concentration once you are here. And it can be a higher education concentration, a pre-K-12 concentration, or an individually designed concentration. And what this means is that through the thematic clusters and through the courses that you choose, all of them are still the POLS degree, but there's a slightly different flavor. Think of it as chocolate ice cream versus vanilla ice cream. It's still all mostly the same stuff, but there is this pretty distinct flavor that makes it a higher ed concentration through a couple of required courses or the pre-K-12 concentration. For the POLS thematic clusters, the thematic clusters are the components. Think of them as buckets, and this is what gives your program structured flexibility. And I think this is one of the things that makes POLS so unique. So for example, there will be 13 courses in the teaching and learning thematic cluster. And of those 13, you need to take 2. You can take more than that if you want to, but you at least need to take 2. And what this allows is that structured flexibility where our faculty know that you are being exposed to some key concepts in these 4 thematic areas which they feel are so important. But at the same time, your own passions and personal interests are driving those choices because you have the freedom to choose the courses that most resonate with what you're interested in. If you want to learn more about the specific courses under each of these thematic clusters, you can go to our website at the URL on the screen, and then just look under academics. And then if you still want to read further about the specific courses in more detail, any course that you find on there, you'll be able to read an abbreviated description of at the website explorecourses.stanford.edu. That's explorecourses.stanford.edu. And independent studies, I mentioned earlier, again, one of those very unique areas that allow you to get what you really want to get out of your POLS master's degree. The POLS project is something else that really, it's an aspect, it's a required part of the POLS curriculum, and it really grounds your Stanford graduate experience in an educational challenge that matters to you. And what the POLS project is a seminar that you take throughout the year that really helps you to create integration and coherence across a number of your courses, a number of your graduate experiences to address a particular educational challenge that you have noted as being of particular significance to you. It's also an opportunity in May when we have the POLS Project Showcase to articulate your lessons learned and your insights gathered from the year to a broad and diverse audience, which we feel is a really great opportunity for you to step back and reflect upon your experience and really articulate those lessons into those crystallized nuggets of value that you've reached, but also prepares you wonderfully for what happens after POLS, which is the interview process for your career search as you decide what your next step is. And you may be asked what exactly your master's degree was about. And for most POLS students, that's a very different answer for each of them individually because they come from and go on to quite a varied number of career paths. So at a glance, this is what the POLS year of study looks like. On the yellow vertical lines, you'll see there's an autumn, winter, and spring quarter. On the horizontal lines, you'll see the POLS thematic cluster requirements in the 4 different areas. And so right on that second to last line, on a quarterly basis, you're taking anywhere from 11 to 18 units in a given quarter, and you'll be graduating with 45 to 54 units total, and 36 of those need to be EDUC units. There are, of course, a number of other requirements that have to be fulfilled, but on a very big picture level, this is what the year of study in the POLS program looks like. In internships, we have a number of internship opportunities that our internship specialist vets, well, first recruits and then vets every summer. And those are available to our 35 students. Here is a sampling of how many students participate in an internship in a given quarter. These are for the class of 2010-2011. And you'll notice that most students most students do participate in an internship. Over half of them do. But while we definitely provide you the opportunities of having all these very rich internship opportunities available to you, we also do not push you to participate in an internship because for most of our POLS students, this is their terminal professional degree. And therefore, if you don't feel that you need the internship opportunity and you much more want to take advantage of the coursework, that is an option that, that is absolutely respected. So we always say these are a number of great opportunities. They've been vetted for you. We will make sure you have a great experience, but only participate in an internship if the work moves forward your career goals. And we really do mean that. One of the internship opportunities that we have available is through the Student Affairs Office here at Stanford, and that's a specific internship position that you apply directly to. There's a $1,000 quarterly stipend that's attached to it. For those Student Affairs POLS Fellows, there are a series of meetings with the Vice Provost for Student Affairs and his executive team. And there's also various higher education positions that may not be included under the Student Affairs Fellowship because of the nature of us being housed within this great university. And those can also be possibilities, not necessarily with the stipend attached to them, but the experiences will be there. We have a fellowship with new leaders where if you're interested in running a school, as a principal, we don't have a principal preparation program specifically here at Stanford, but if you apply to new leaders and to polls and are admitted to both programs, new leaders will grant you a deferred admission so that you can come to Stanford, receive your polls master's program, and then upon graduation, go directly to begin your new leaders residency. And participating in the New Leaders Stanford Fellows, we do give you up to a $10,000 tuition fellowship for 2 individuals over the 2012-2013 year. If you're interested in this, you can learn more about it on our website at the URL that's right there on the screen. We also have a similar fellowship opportunity for Teach for America alumni, where in order to be eligible, you have to be a TFA alumnus, and Stanford will award one $10,000 tuition fellowship to a TFA alumnus, and upon gaining admission to the program, students are asked to indicate their eligibility and interest in being considered for this fellowship, and at that point in time, from those people who are admitted, one of them is selected for a $10,000 tuition fellowship. So what do Polls students do after graduation? I'm not going to go through the whole list that's on the screen, but the one thing that stands out to me in looking at this list is that for the most part, the bulk of Polls students end up in management positions in educational organizations across a variety of different sectors. So it may be small organizations, large, for-profit, nonprofit, governmental, but really they're running something, they're managing something, again, looking for that systemic impact in an organizational capacity. So now I wanted to touch upon the joint MA-MBA class and dive a little more deeply into what that program looks like. In 2011, we had 17 students graduate from the program. 45% were female, 11% international, 22% U.S. minorities. They come from diverse backgrounds in public, private, and nonprofit sectors. The way the MA-MBA program works, the first year, you are, for the most part, participating in the core MBA curriculum during fall and winter quarter. Spring quarter, there is a pro seminar taught at the School of Education exclusively for the joint MA-MBA students and also required of them. A couple of, I'd say maybe 20% of the class may begin to take a School of Education course winter quarter. Not everyone takes advantage of that opportunity, but many people do want to start taking the dual coursework in both schools as early as possible. And there's always a number of people who do that beginning winter quarter. During the summer, most of our students in the joint MA-MBA program participate in an internship. You don't have to, but most of them do. And you have the SUSE, and SUSE, if I haven't said already, stands for the Stanford School of Education, Stanford University School of Education, pardon me. But you have the SUSE career service resources at your disposal, as well as the Stanford GSB career service resources at your disposal. And one of those from the GSB side is the Stanford Management Internship Fund. And what that does is provide you with additional funding to increase the level of compensation you receive for your summer internship in case the organization you want to work with doesn't have the funds to compensate you at the same level as your MBA peers who are going off with for-profit organizations. So say you wanted to go intern with some really interesting educational organization in Latin America or in another developing country, that would be a possibility where you can receive additional funding if this NGO doesn't have sufficient funds to allow you to earn what you need to earn that summer. Your second year, there is when over the summer you are assigned your faculty advisor from the School of Education, and we also, with your input, You also, at that point, will receive a list of courses for the coming year. And we ask that before the year begins, you select your program of study, whether you're going to be a higher education, pre-K-12, or individually designed concentration student. And then that second year, you're taking electives, and you can see a lot of what those different courses look like at the URL on the page. The way that the joint MA-MBA program works is that on the GSB side, you're going to have to complete 84 units in order to complete your MBA, which is slightly less than what a normal MBA student would have to complete. I believe that's 88 last time I checked. But as a joint student, you only have to complete 84. On the School of Education side, you complete 35 units. And then that overlapping area that you see there, up to 10 units that go towards your degrees can be cross-listed. And what that means is, up to 10 units can come from cross-listed courses. And cross-listed courses are courses that are listed with both schools, and you will be able, for those 10 units, to count them towards each of the degrees. So you can double count those 10 units, both towards the 35 education units that you have to complete for your master's in education and towards the 84 units you have to complete for your MBA. And these 10 units go back to having these access to this list of cross-listed courses. This goes back to sort of the nature of what makes Stanford so unique, where there are very few universities where faculty in one school will give a courtesy appointment to faculty in another school and cross-list their courses with another label. So you'll have a course like Strategic Management of Nonprofit Organizations, and that course both has a GSB listing and an EDUC listing. So that's part of what makes a joint degree possible and part of what makes it so unique. What do joint MA-MBA students do after they graduate? Very similar to the POLS program. You're going to see that they really do tend to go into these positions where they have a management level position in an educational organization. And this, a lot of these are for-profit, nonprofit, philanthropic, governmental organizations, and definitely quite a diverse array. For both programs, the joint MA-MBA and the POLS program, you're participating in a very tight cohort with a diverse and fascinating peer group. People always say that their peers are just one of the top two best aspects of the program. The other one that's always tied with that is the accessible and impressive faculty. Again, the internship opportunities are there for both the joint MA-MBA students and the POLS students. The Education Club is a phenomenal resource to students at SUSY and the GSB, and it is run by students from both schools in a very unique setup. There's a great conference that they put on every year called the Business of Education Conference. It's put on through the Ed Club, but it sort of has a life of its own. It's like a club within a club. There's also a number of Stanford-wide organizations that you can participate in. I think we have over 300 different student groups at Stanford. And there's always the opportunity to start something of your own. We've had joint MA-MBA and POLS students in the past, not too often, but every so often they'll find a need that's not being met and they will create their own student group. Or perhaps it's a conference of sorts that takes on a life of its own. We also, in terms of people say, well, what are you providing to help me sort of launch into my career? And in developing your career vision, the faculty are always there. You have if you're in the joint MA-MBA program, you have a GSB faculty advisor. All of our SUSY students have a SUSY faculty advisor. There's myself as your program director. There are the SUSY Career Services that are available with our SUSY Director of Career Services. Also, we have our internship program is run by a phenomenal internship specialist who very much will make sure that you stay on target and are getting what you need to get out of your internship and being strategic about thinking into the future as to where your skill gaps and exposure gaps are so that you get those out of your internship. Your cohort is a great asset to you, and we definitely help you leverage your cohort in developing this career vision because they come from such diverse and varied life experiences and career experiences, and the alumni network that you have. As I mentioned before, this is Stanford-wide, and it really allows you to conduct informational interviews during your time here and after you leave. In terms of the application itself, the personal statement is very important, and I always tell people to make it comprehensive, concise, and compelling. You want to tell your story. You want to tell it tightly enough that it's making sense to the reader and that it's not too convoluted, but at the same time, you want to leave enough detail so that when that reader finishes reading your story, he or she feels compelled that you have to be part of the class that's admitted. So make sure that your voice comes across in this essay, in this personal statement. It's important to integrate themes about who you are, who you want to be, and why you've chosen this particular path, and to also explain why this particular program and why now, particularly if you're on either end of that bell curve I talked about earlier, where maybe the average person would say, well, you don't have enough work experience, or wait, you're such an accomplished professional, why do you need this master's in education? Why, but even anywhere in between that, why is now the right time for you to be pursuing this degree? Highlight your leadership abilities. That means a lot to us in evaluating candidates for these two programs, and your experience, and your leadership experience. And when we talk about leadership abilities and experience, we're referring to both the formal and the informal opportunities that you've had to exercise your leadership. The joint MA-MBA application accepts either the GMAT or the GRE scores, but remember that the POLS Master's application only accepts the GRE scores. So please keep that in mind as you think through your application process. Remember that if you're interested in both programs, because some of our students are interested in both the POLS program and the joint MA-MBA, you can apply to both, but be aware that there are differences in application requirements, and just treat them as two completely independent, because they are application processes. The joint MA-MBA application originates at the GSB and has 3 admissions rounds. You can find those on the GSB website. And the POLS Master's degree has 1 admissions round, which is January 5th, 2012. Also note that the joint MA-MBA program has a fall admissions round in October of your first year of your MBA. If you're interested in looking at specific admissions criteria, we have that on our admissions website, and the URL is right there. And for financial aid questions, again, that's right on our admissions website. So if you have any more questions, we would love to hear from you. You can go to our website or to the GSB website and find more information about both of these programs. We'll cover everything that our website covers, both of the programs from the School of Education site. If you have more questions about the MBA side of the joint MA-MBA program, it's best to go directly to the GSB site. And then Explore Courses is a great site to find out the types of courses that are around. And Embi Kubuyama is our admissions specialist, and she can answer your questions directly, but she also holds regular webinars throughout the year. And if you go to our LDP website, you will definitely be able to register for those. So once again, I just want to thank you for your interest in our programs, and good luck with deciding which is the right place for you to be applying, and then upon being admitted, good luck with selecting the right program that's the best fit for you. And thank you once again. Goodbye.